Once again, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So, we are almost done with our discussion for the subject CLJ1. And last meeting, we have discussed the Katarungang Pambarangay law. So, the only topic left is restorative justice. So, moving on, we have here restorative justice. Before I almost forget, let me just clarify matters in relation to our face-to-face discussion last week. So last week we have tackled about illegal operation, yan, and the inadmissibility of evidence. So illegal operations pertains to operations that are against the law, meaning operations which violated a law. Okay, so that is your basis as stated by Miss, who was this? Miss, no, I forgot. Miss, yan, basta siya. Yan, which it is explained by the doctrine of the fruit of the poisonous tree, which states that any evidence as a result or gathered as a result of illegal operation are fruits of poisonous tree. Thus, it is not admissible as evidence in court. Okay? So we have here inadmissible evidence. So how do we say that a particular evidence is inadmissible? So an evidence is inadmissible if first it is excluded by law. So in what way or why will it be excluded by law? So it may be excluded by law because during its seizure, collection, or confiscation, a law might have been violated, thereby making it a fruit of the poisonous tree. Aside from that, an evidence may be inadmissible because it may be immaterial. Kumbaga, hindi siya material sa kaso and it may be irrelevant. So, in no way was the evidence relevant. So, napakalayo, hindi siya tumutukoy. So, let's say for example, the case is a homicide through stabbing. Tapos, ang pinipresent nating evidence is like a poison. So, irrelevant, di ba? Dapat ang pinipresent natin pagka stabbing incident, it should be knife. Yan, di ba? Okay. However, the problem is, yan, all evidence works must be legal, di ba? So, means to say, all investigative works must be legal, must be conforming with the law for the pieces of evidence to be admissible in court. Saglit lang, isara ko lang yung bintana. Yan, tumatahol-tahol yung aso, sumasabay eh. Excuse me. Okay, so all investigative works must be conforming with the law for the evidence gathered to be admissible in court and for us not to encounter investigative lapses later on, okay? Because investigative lapses may result in the technical or outright dismissal of cases and even acquittal of the accused. Siyempre, pagka wala tayong evidence na may present, ano pa mangyayari sa kaso, di ba? Ma-acquit yung accused natin, yung inaakusan natin. And all intelligence works, yan. So, take note of this, ladies and gentlemen, the difference between investigation and intelligence. So, all investigative works must be legal, while in intelligence, all intelligence works may not be legal. So, take note of this, ladies and gentlemen. All intelligence works may not be legal, meaning some intelligence work may be legal and some intelligence works may be illegal. Why? Because the concept of intelligence, it employs it may employ lesser evil to prevent greater evil. Yan yung isang concept ng intelligence. Now, I made mention about illegal intelligence works and legal intelligence works. So to enumerate, some of the illegal intelligence works include wiretapping. Yan. So bawal talaga ang wiretapping. Hacking. Yan. But wiretapping and hacking are some example of intelligence works that are illegal, but it must be used to somehow prevent greater evil. Yan yung yung mga most example niyan. But there are remedies. So explain ko mamaya. Continue ko lang. So recording of private conversation without the knowledge of the parties, that is illegal. Surveillance. So there are surveillance that can be legal and that can be illegal. It depends on whether or not the operative or the agent had violated a law or not. Mostly, if our subject is a place, yan, we name the operation casing. If the operation is casing, most likely casing pertains to merely observation of a place. Yan. So pagka ganun lang, observation of a place lang, legal yan, di ba? But the problem is, if we entered in a private property, trespassing na yon, di ba? And at the same time, kung pinilit rin nating pumasok sa private structure, private building, without knowledge and consent of the owner, that's trespass to dwelling. Eh, kung pinirsa pa nating buksan, yung private property na yon, private building, that's surreptitious entry. Kumbaga, di ba? So, so illegal operations yung mga yon. Aside from those, we also have wiring and bagging of houses or offices without the consent of the owner. Yan, illegal din yan. So, pag pumasok tayo sa isang bahay, nagplant tayo ng wiring and bagging and CCTV inside that house, illegal din siya. And aside from that, we have the instigation. So, ano ba yung instigation? It is a type of operation wherein the investigator or an agent ask or taught someone to sell something that is illegal or is a contraband such as drugs, weapon, tapos sa kanila huhuliin. That is an example of instigation. So, illegal po yan. And let's move on with the examples of legal intelligence works. We have here consented recording of conversation. So, okay lang yan pagka nag-consent yung in-interview nyo na may record yung conversation nyo, okay lang. Next is surveillance, such as surveillance wherein the subject is a person. So pagka person ang subject natin or vehicle ang subject natin, we refer it as tailing. We call the operation a tailing. Yan, di ba? Tailing. And the subject of tailing is called a rabbit. Now, so mainly, pagka purely tailing lang siya, sinusundan lang natin yung subject natin, we are not violating any law. Di ba? Pagka nagpo-photograph tayo, we are not violating any law. And likewise, if we are videographing while doing tailing, we are not violating any law. But here is the catch. The problem with tailing, photographing, and videographing is if in case you were burned out by your subject, the risk is yan. So, pwede kang mahuli. And at the same time, if you were captured, you may be the person to be subjected to their torture. And they may even kill you. So, yun lang ang problema dito. So, kumbaga, do surveillance operation at your own risk. Pag nahuli ka, wala na. Malas mo. Buy-bust operation. So, that's an example of a legal operation. So, buy-bust operation is the mere opposite of instigation. Entrapment also can be called or can be the opposite of instigation. Yung buy-bust operation kasi is we wait for someone to sell a contraband and a pusher buyer, an agent in plain clothes, we call him pusher buyer, will act as a buyer. Diba? So, nakasibilyan siya, bibili. Tapos, pagka nabigay na niya yung pera at nabot na rin sa kanya yung droga, pwede nang huliin yung nagbenta. So, buy-bust operation, that is a legal operation. Ang opposite pala ng buy-bust, ladies and gentlemen, is sell-bust. Yung muntik ng i-defense ng PDEA nung nagka-encounter ang PDEA at PNP nun, di ba? They were operating against each other. So, illegal po yung sell-bust. There's no such thing as sell-bust daw na magpapanggap silang nagbebenta tapos ang huhuliin nila is yung bibili. Yan. So, siguro pwede, for me, pwede yung sell-bust if in case yung unang sell-bust nyo is test sell muna. So, test sell muna. Tapos pagka sa second is you inform the court for documentation. Tapos yung second na sell-bust nyo on the same subject will be legal. Diba? Ganun dapat. Hindi yung unang encounter pa lang tapos sell-bust na. So, yan. So, after that, buy-bust operation, we have here the entrapment. So, entrapment operation, mostly saan ba natin ginagamit ang entrapment operation? Mostly against illegal recruiters. So, parang pareho lang din siya ng concept with the buy-bust. Kumbaga, entrapment talaga yung buy-bust operation. So, entrapment is its broader name. More specific, buy-bust. Pero ang buy-bust, nakafocus lang siya sa selling, capturing, or apprehending of a salesperson of a contraband. While in entrapment, it includes here the apprehension of illegal recruiters. So, kumbaga, after payment by the tawag nito, by the person, by the victim, after his payment, saka naman huhuliin ng operatives yung illegal recruiter. So, yan ang entrapment. CCTV monitoring. If the CCTV is already installed, especially if the CCTV is owned by the government, installed by the government, yan, that is mere lawful. So, legal operation yan, CCTV monitoring. And also tailing with the use of GPS trackers. So, parang tailing of person lang din siya. So, kumbaga sinusundan natin yung sasakyan through GPS para makita natin kung saan nagpupunta, sinong mga nakakasalamuhan nila, saan kumukuha ng supply, saan nagbebenta. Yan. So, legal din yan. But still, the problem is pagka nahuli ka nung sinusundan mo, you may be subjected to their ambush. Yun lang ang risk niya. Now, I made mention about illegal intelligence works a while back. Now, is there a way we can make use of illegal works? Because the subject of my student last week was, what is the sense of all those illegal works, illegal intelligence works such as surveillance, if the evidence gathered or acquired through it are inadmissible in court? So anong kwenta niyan kung anong kwenta ng surveillance operation na yan, ng intelligence works na yan? Kung naman pala lahat ng mga evidensyang nagagather dyan is magiging inadmissible in court. So, yun yung tanong niya. Take note, ladies and gentlemen, that we also have the term undercover operations. Di ba? So, ano ba yung undercover operations? Undercover operations is an investigative work. Yan. So, investigative work siya. When we say investigative work, it focuses on gathering of evidence for the successful uh, apprehension to penalization of the perpetrator. Yan, di ba? So, an undercover agent may do all of this. So, ano ba ang undercover agent? He is an agent of the government, of the state, who misrepresents himself to our target syndicate. Yan. So, magpapanggap siya na recruit ng sindikato para makakuha ng ebidensya against the target syndicate. Kaya nga hindi natin maiiwasan na yung mga undercover agent natin kung minsan, para maiwasan na para hindi sila masuspetsa na sila yung traitor within the syndicate group, they may be forced to use drugs, yan, and they may even be forced to kill someone just to prove themselves worthy of trust by the syndicate. So, yun lang din ang mahirap sa undercover operations. Now, in illegal operations, how would we make use of the evidence gathered? Kasi kung inadmissible yung mga result ng mga illegal operations na yan, edi ano pang kwenta niyan? First is for intelligence work. Ayan nga, ang one concept niya nga is to prevent greater evil by employing lesser evil. So that's one concept. And second is we have alternative. So we can use the product of our illegal intelligence work as a means of acquiring a search warrant. Yan. So, pwede natin gamitin yan para maka-acquire ng search warrant, and upon implementation of the search warrant, kung ano man na ebidensya na mag-gather natin, yun na ang magiging legal. So, yun na ang magiging admissible evidence natin against that subject, against our perpetrator or violator. Yan. So that's all, ladies and gentlemen. I just hope you were clarified with our discussion last meeting. Napaisip kasi ako kasi ang alam ko, naintindihan nyo. Nagtanong ako kung naintindihan nyo. Umuo naman kayo. Pero nung dismiss na tayo, nagrupo kayo dun sa labas. You were discussing something I don't know. Siguro, inisip ko lang, baka malamang yun. Baka naguguluhan kayo dun. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, let us proceed with our topic proper, our last topic for this subject, and preparation for your examination next week, final examination. Okay. So, restorative justice, we have here our objective. At the end of the unit, the student should be able to understand the theory of criminal justice that emphasizes repairing. So, that is our keyword, repairing the harm caused or revealed by the criminal behavior. So, what is the purpose of your restorative justice? Yan, it emphasizes on repairing the harm. Okay. So what is our instructional material? Our handout, which was already sent to you, and even a pre-recorded lesson. So ito mismo, if forward ko to sa inyo, yan na yung pre-recorded lesson natin aside from your handout. So we will be discussing this for 2 hours and 30 minutes, and let's just try to have it 1 hour, average of 1 hour. Yan. So our teaching learning activity or lesson proper. Restorative justice is commonly known as the theory of criminal justice that focuses on crime as an act by an offender against another individual or community rather than the state. Yan. So, ang sabi ni restorative justice, crime daw is against, they see crime as against a particular person, but not rather than a crime against the state. Kumbaga, yun yung sabi niya. Bakit? Bakit against a particular person? So, kasi yung particular person, yun yung kailangan nating, siya yung mismong nag-experience ng damage. So, siya mismo yung kailangan nating i-repair. Sa kanya na tayo dapat mag-repair. Kung ano yung na-damage sa kanya, so yun ang ayusin natin, di ba? So, dialogue between offending person, the perpetrator, and the person who has been harmed, the victim, is a central process within restorative justice. So, yan daw yung sentro niya, restorative justice. The dialogue, the conversation between the offended party and the offender. The person who has harmed takes responsibility for their actions. Yan. So, yung offender, dapat maging responsable siya sa nagawa niya. And the person who has been harmed is able to take a central role in the process. In many instances, receiving an apology and reparation directly or indirectly from the person who has caused the harm through the use of mediator or facilitator. Yan. So, receiving an apology daw and reparation may directly or indirectly help in the implementation of restorative justice. With the aid, of course, of a mediator or a facilitator. Oh, aba, yun lang pala yun. So what is the main idea of restorative justice? So the main idea of restorative justice is it repairs the harm. Now, on the part of the perpetrator shall be responsible of his act. And the persons, by the way, the persons involved in restorative justice, by the way, is not compulsory or is not required to participate. Yan. So, hindi siya mandatory. Kumbaga, voluntary siya. If both parties voluntarily agreed for a restorative justice, then pwede natin i-apply to. But if one party is not cooperating, hindi rin to gagana. Kasi kung gagana yan, kasi kung magpa-participate yung dalawang party, both the perpetrator and the accused, if the perpetrator is willing to repair his damages, yan, and if the victim at the same time accepts the offer of reparation from the perpetrator, then we have no problem. Di ba? Yan. So, kumbaga, yun lang naman ang gusto ng victim, di ba? Yung dapat maayos yung kanyang damage, yung nasira sa kanya. As a perpetrator naman, he has the responsibility to fix what he has damaged. Okay. So, if in case, sabi natin, sir, sabi niyo hindi siya compulsory. What if a party doesn't want to undergo restorative justice? So, yun ang problema. Mostly nang nangyayari ngayon, just to add my experience and observation, ang napakaganda ng idea ng restorative justice. Kasi kung may apply natin to, if both parties are willing to undergo restorative justice, yan, then at least mababawas sa decongestion ng cases, ng court dockets, di ba? And at the same time, sa mga overcrowding in jails and prison facilities, mababawasan din sana. Kung lang sana willing yung dalawang parties, the perpetrator and the victim. Pero the problem is, what if the perpetrator doesn't want to pay? Ang dami niyang alibay kesa wala, kitang-kita namang capable siya of repairing the damage, pero parating wala daw, wala. Ganyan. So means to say, ayaw niyang mag-participate. Di ba? Mostly kasi ng mga nakakasuhan ngayon, ganyan. Mostly ng may mga damage, nakasira, talagang ayaw magbayad. Tapos, yung parang ano lang, yung parang yung manghihiram lang din. Pagka kung manghihiram, abay, napaka-friendly niya, napaka-masunurin. Pag magpapatulong, napaka-marespeto. Kumbaga, sir, ma'am, patulong nga. Yan, tinulungan mo. Pero after mong tinulungan, pagka wala na siyang kailangan sa'yo, tatawagin ka niya through names you don't even know. Ay, yan si Bulldog. Ano yan? Di ba? Pero nung Bulldog na ang tawag sa'yo. Pero nung humingi siya ng tulong sa'yo, abay, napaka-humble. Sir, ma'am. Diba? Kumbaga parang ano rin, parang sa staffa cases din, di ba? Minsan, pagka manghihiram, napaka-marespeto, tapos down to earth. Pero pagka napahiraman na at kunwari siya na yung masisingil, sisingilin mo, pupuntahan mo pa mismo sa kanila, abay, magagalit, sisigaw, ikaw pa yung mapapahiya, di ba? Baliktad na. So, sila na yung may liability, sila pa yung demanding. So, yun kasi mostly ang observation ko. Kaya hindi rin masyadong nagsasaksid ang restorative justice. The only way I can say to truly acquire justice at this very moment, as based on my observation, kasi ang ginagawa ng mga ano naman, ang mga offender, pagka hindi sila kinasuhan, hindi talaga sila makikipag-settle. Ang dami nilang alibay, ganyan. Tapos nga, kahit nga kinasuhan sila, ano pa, hindi rin talaga sila makikipag-settle. Lalo na kung nakita nila na mahina yung ebidensya nung nag-file ng case sa kanila. Ganun. Pero pagka nakita nilang napakalakas ng ebidensya against them, saka sila makikipag-settle. Diba? So, pinaabot pa nila sa uh, pre-conference briefing wherein the pieces of evidence are presented. Pagka na-present, nakita nilang, ay, medyo malabo ako Sabi, saka sila makikipag-settle. Pero pagka nakita nila yung ebidensya kulang, ay wala. Kahit patapusin pa nila yung hearing, magpa-participate pa rin sa mga hearing, okay lang. Bakit? Kasi alam naman nila at ang kinahihinatnan ang kalalabasan. Kulang yung ebidensya mo, makakwit din ako. Kumbaga ganyan. So, yun lang. I'll just check on some of the notes written in yan, in our notes. Okay, so I think let's just have a reading comprehension. Wala pala siya dito, hindi pala siya na-save dito. Okay. So, restorative justice is commonly known as theory of criminal justice that focuses on crime as an act of an offender against another individual or community rather than the state. Dialogue between offending person and the person who has been harmed is a central process within restorative justice. The person who has harmed takes responsibility for their actions, and the person who has been harmed is able to take a central role in the process. In many instances, receiving an apology and reparation directly or indirectly from the person who has caused the harm through the use of a mediator or facilitator. So yan yung objective ng restorative justice. Kasi meron din na tayong mga victim na the mere na mag-sorry ka lang sa kanya, yun lang naman ang hihingi ko, magpasensya ka lang, mag-sorry ka lang, okay na ako doon. Diba? Yung mga ganun, may mga victim rin na ganun. So restorative justice is a theory of justice that emphasizes repairing the harm caused or revealed by criminal offender. It is best accomplished through cooperative processes that include all stakeholders, primarily the perpetrator and the victim. So kung nag-participate yung community, nag-participate yung victim, pero hindi nag-participate yung perpetrator, wala rin. Walang restorative justice. So practices and programs reflecting restorative purposes will respond to crime by identifying and taking steps to repair the harm. So that is your keyword. The practices and programs of restorative justice, identifying the harm and taking steps to repair the harm. Yan. Second, involving all stakeholders. So we have lots of stakeholders. We have NGOs, we have volunteers. Yan. So pagka ang property nasira is soil, siguro pwede tayong kumuha ng volunteers from the community to fix that soil formation. Diba? Mga ganyan. Transforming the traditional relationship between communities and their government in responding to crime. And some of the programs and outcomes typically identified with restorative justice include victim-offender mediation. So, ito lang naman yung main parties dito, victim and offender. They mediate together. Yan. Conferencing. So, we have lots of conferencing. So, family conferencing. So, pagka family conferencing, yung pamilya ng biktima, kasama yung biktima, at yung offender, kasama yung pamilya niya, and yung mga friends nila, will have a conferencing about the matter to resolve or to repair what needs to be repaired. So we also have the circles. Napaka-broad ng circles. Circle of friends. Isama na natin. Victim assistance. So yan. Siyempre yung victim, hindi rin naman yan papayag sa restorative justice. Kunwari, sabi ng perpetrator, I am willing to undergo restorative justice. Sabi niya, wala naman siyang in-offer to repair. Diba? Wala naman siyang in-offer to repair the damages. Hindi rin papayag yung victim dyan. Siyempre, kailangan ding may offer ka para ma-repair yung damages. Ex-offender assistance. Yan. Kasi bakit? Kasi kung minsan yung mga offended party, pagka nakasuhan, nagkaroon na ng criminal record. So, hindi na makakuha man ng NBI clearance at police clearance ang nakalagay doon with previous case, di ba? So, palamang hindi na rin siya makakuha ng trabaho. Ngayon, so we have here the ex-offender assistance dapat. So, ano ba dapat to? Pwedeng livelihood program, turuan natin siyang gumawa ng sarili niyang produkto at ibenta ito. O kaya, tulungan din natin through contribution or through uh, ano na yung mga concert for a cause, mga ganyan. So, mag-contribute for him. Restitution. And we also have here community service. Mostly, community service is applicable if the law violated by the perpetrator is a municipal or city ordinance. Mostly, ganon. Pagka ang na-violate ng tao is municipal or city ordinance, instead of imprisonment or a fine, kung hindi niya kayang bayaran, at kung ayaw niya ring makulong, mag-plea bargain siya sa sa LGU, pwedeng pwede siyang bigyan ng community service as punishment. Yan yung magtatrabaho siya, 1 day community service, 2 day community service, 3 days community service, mga ganyan, di ba? So, maglilinis within a place in Baguio. Probably, mga public properties yung mga yan. Mga parks, parang Burnham Park siguro, ganyan. Basta public places ang place kung saan sila magko-community service. Maglilinis, magte-tree planting, yan pwede. So we have here the 3 principles form the foundation for restorative justice. So justice requires that we work to restore those who have been injured. So we have to restore those who have been injured or the victims, and those most directly involved and affected by crime should have the opportunity to participate fully in the response if they wish. Yan. So, if they wish. So, hindi siya sapilitan. Kung gusto mong mag-participate, pwede. Government's role is to preserve a just public order, and the communities is to build and maintain just peace. Yan. So, napakaganda talaga ng restorative justice. Instead of yung both parties uh, maglalaban, mag-aaway, hanggang sa magpatayan, hanggang sa mag-tribal waran, at least restorative justice is the remedy sana kung okay lang sana sa both parties. Mag-usap lang sila, o ito, ayusin ko yung kasalanan ko, o kaya ano ba yung pwede kong magawa para mapatawad mo ako, di ba? As simple as that lang. Okay na. Hindi na lalala, di ba? Hindi na abot sa patayan. Hindi na abot sa tribal wars. Ganun sana. Now, restorative programs are characterized by 4 key values. We have here encounter, amend, reintegration, and inclusion. Yan. So, encounter. Encounter, create opportunities for victims, offenders, and community members who want to do so to meet to discuss the crime and its aftermath or effect. Yan. So, mag-encounter silang lahat. Mag-meet sila to discuss the crime and its aftermath. Amen. Expect offenders to take steps to repair the harm they have caused. So, if the perpetrator is expected to pay or to fix or to repair his damages, we call it amend. And reintegration, yan. So, reintegration is to seek to restore victims and offenders to whole, contributing members of society. Yan. So, to reintegrate the victim and at the same time, the offender back to the community. Kasi meron din tayong mga victim kasi na disintegrate such as the victims of rape, di ba? Pag yan, nalaman ng mga tao, mas lalong lalayuan sila ng tao. Kaya yun, kailangan ding i-restore yung victim. And the offender din, kailangan ding i-reintegrate din yung offender kasi the more na, ayan, ex-convict yan, nilalayuan din ng tao, di ba? So, kailangan ding hanapan ng paraan para maka-reintegrate sa community. And inclusion provide opportunities for parties with a stake in a specific crime to participate in its resolution. Yan. So we have to provide opportunities for parties to stake to parties with a stake in a specific crime to participate in its resolution. So lahat ng nag-participate doon sa crime ay may opportunity to participate in this restorative justice. Kung gusto mo, you are welcome to participate. Kung ayaw mo, then we have no choice but to do the very uh, yan, we have no choice but to resort to filing of criminal charges. Kumbaga. Application of restorative justice. So restorative justice takes many different forms, but all systems have some aspect in common. So napakaraming forms ng restorative justice, but they have common concept. So in criminal cases, what is the concept in criminal cases? Victims have an opportunity to express the full impact of the crime upon their lives. So, nung dati, nung hindi pa ako nabunggo, nung perpetrator, nakakapaglakad ako, nakakapagtrabaho ako ng maayos, sumasahod ako ng 5,000 per kinsenas, may kinabubuhay ng pamilya ko. So, di ba, mga ganyan. Ngayon, nung na-aksidente ako, nabunggo ako ni Pedro, di na ako makapagtrabaho. O, di ba? So, yun yung in-express ng victim. So, ano yung idea nyo? Dapat mayroong support, di ba? Dapat supportahan ng perpetrator yung offender. Kasi dahil sa ginawa niya, nawalan ng kinabubuhay yung victim. Yan. And the victim to receive answers to any lingering questions about the incident and to participate in holding the offender accountable for his or her actions. Now, the offenders also can tell their story of why the crime occurred. So, kung bakit naman nila nagawa yung crime. Yan. So, pwede niyang ikwento rin. So, napuwersa lang din ako. I was also forced to commit a crime, to do robbery and theft. Bakit? Kasi wala nang panggatas si baby. Mga ganyan siguro. Yan. They are given an opportunity to make things right with the victim. Yan. So, the perpetrators are given opportunity to make things right. You are given opportunity to settle or to repair your damages to the degree possible through some form of compensation. So, pwedeng bayad. In social justice, impoverished people such as foster children are given the opportunity to describe what they hope for their future and make concrete plans for transitioning out of state custody in a group process with their supporters. So pagka naman sa mga crimes involving minors, so kung sasabihin naman ng mga minors, this is what we hope for when we grow up. I would like to be a doctor. Gusto kong maging doktor paglaki ko para makatulong sa kapwa. O sabi ng isa. Tapos sabi naman ng bata, gusto ko ring maging abogasya para makapag-defend ng kapwa. Sabi naman niya. Tapos sabi naman ng isa na bata, ay oo nga, ang ganda ng mga pangarap nyo. Ano kayong pangarap ko? Alam ko na. Gusto kong maging kapwa. Sabi niya. So, para tulungan daw siya. Siya na lang daw yung tinutulungan nung magdodoktor at magiging lawyer. Yan. So, what the children hopes in social justice. Yan. In criminal cases, types of compensation include but are not limited to money. Yan. So, pwedeng pera ang pang-repair, community service in general. So, pwede rin yan ang pang-repair. Mostly offered lang to pagka yung victim is the local government or the law violated is the municipal or city ordinance. Community service is specific to the deed. Yan. And self-education to prevent recidivism. Yan. So, pwede rin yan. So, you have to undergo education, self-education, for you not to be a recidivist. Tapos, expression of remorse. Yan. So, pagsasorry, paghingi ng sorry, at pagpapromise not to do it again. In the courtroom, the process might look like this. So, the process of restorative justice looks like this. For petty or first-time offenses, a case may be referred to the restorative justice as a pre-trial diversion, with charges being dismissed after the fulfillment of the restitution agreement. Yan. So, pagka may agreement between parties, pwede mag-result sa immediate dismissal of the case. That is a form of restorative justice. And in more serious offenses or cases, restorative justice may be a part of a sentence that includes prison time or other punishment. So, pagka serious naman yung offense, ay dapat ma-penalize talaga. Ma-imprison talaga rin yung perpetrator. Kasi napakahirap. Pag pinabayaan natin to, baka mas marami pa siyang biktima ng serious crimes. Kung murder yon, hindi mas marami pa siyang mapatay. In the community, concerned individuals meet with all affected parties to determine what the experience and impact of the crime were for all. Those called out for offenses listen to others' experiences first. So preferably until they are able to reflect and feel what those experiences were for others. Then they speak to their experience, how it was for them to do what they did. A plan is made for prevention of future occurrences and for offender to heal the damage of the injured parties. So, yun talaga yung keyword niya. For the offender to heal the damage incurred by the victim. All agree, and community members hold offender accountable for the adherence of this plan. Yan. So, sabi nung perpetrator, magbabayad ako. So, ano ang participation ng community? So, dapat panindigan mo, sabi ng community. Dapat panindigan mo yung pinamis mo. Means of reparation. Excuse me. So, let's move on with restorative justice processes. We have the victim offender mediation or the VOM. Victim offender mediation or VOM also called victim-offender dialogue, victim-offender conferencing, or victim-offender reconciliation, or restorative justice dialogue, is usually a face-to-face meeting in the presence of a trained mediator between the victim of the crime and the person who committed that crime. In short, between the victim and the offender. This system generally involves a small number of participants. Small number of participants lang kasi tatatlo lang sila. The victim, the offender, and the mediator lang. Di ba? Yan. So this system generally involves a small number of participants and often is the only option available to incarcerated offenders due to limits on visitors. VOM originated in Canada, where it formed part of an alternative court sanctioned in 1974, Kitchener, Ontario. A Kitchener, Ontario case involving two accused vandals who met face-to-face with their many victims. So, yan daw yung history o yung pinanggalingan ng victim offender mediation. Canada. Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. Where the two vandals, yung nagrurumi ng mga walls, met face-to-face with their victims. So, anong probably ang nangyari? So, humingi ng tawad at hindi na uulitin. Tapos, pinatawad ng community. So, we have here the family group conferencing. So, family group conferencing, or the FGC, has a much wider circle of participants than the VOM. So, mas malawak yung participants niya. In addition to the primary victim and offender, participants may include people connected to the victim. The offender's family members. Yan. So, kasama ang family members ng both offended party and ng victim. And others connected to the offender, such as their friends and professionals. Yan. Kaya napakalawak ng family group conferencing. Family group conferencing, or the FGC, is often the most appropriate system for juvenile cases. So, when do we use FGC? It is most appropriate for juvenile cases. So, minor de edad, due to the important role of the family in juvenile offenders' life. Not only in juvenile offenders' life, but also in uh, private cases such as family cases, child support, and even vowsy and rape cases. Pwede rin yan. Bakit? Kasi in rape cases, meron din tayong yung alternative na, o sige, hindi ka napapailan ng kaso, pero you have to marry, di ba? The victim. Di ba? Pwede rin yun. So, pakasalan mo na lang yung biktima. We also have the restorative or community conferencing. So, restorative or community conferencing. So, napakalawak nito kasi hindi lang family ang included, the whole community na. Restorative conferencing has a much wider circle of participants than VOM. Restorative conferences, which have also been called restorative justice conferences, includes family group conferences and community accountability conferences, originated as a response to juvenile crime. A conference is a structured meeting between offenders, victims, and both parties, family and friends, in which they deal with the consequences of the crime and decide how to best repair the harm. Yan. So, ang pag-uusapan is yung effect ng crime sa community at kung paano daw aayusin yung crime. Neither counseling nor mediation process. Conferencing is a victim-sensitive, straightforward problem-solving method that demonstrates how citizens can resolve their own problems when provided with a constructive forum to do so. Yan. Conferences provide victims and others with an opportunity to confront the offender, express their feelings, ask questions, and have a say in the outcome. Offenders hear firsthand how their behavior has affected people. They may begin to repair the harm by apologizing, making amends, and agreeing to financial restitution or personal or community service work. Yan. So, pasensya na po sa krimen na nagawa ko pagkasabi ng offender. Siyempre, hindi sapat pagka-sorry lang, di ba? Lalo na pagka medyo malaki naman yung damage na nagawa niya. Okay lang siguro pagka minor lang, yung sorry, pagka nasigawan mo lang yung tao, tapos magsasorry ka, yun lang siguro okay, okay lang pagpapatawad. Pero pagka yung may na-damage na property, mga ganyan, kaya may na-aksidente na, kailangan nag-undergo ng operasyon, ganyan, ay hindi naman pwede yung basta sorry lang. So, there has to be a financial support. Yan. So, uh, by apologizing, making amends, and agreeing to financial restitution, yan, or personal community service. So, in the absence of financial capability, pagka wala siyang perang pambayad, ano na lang, mag-service na lang ako sa inyo. Mag-labor na lang ako, di ba? Mag-labor na lang ako hanggang sa mabayaran ko yung total liability ko. So, pwede rin. Mas okay pagka ganun. Conferences hold offenders accountable while providing them with an appropriate to discard the offender, labeled and reintegrated into their community, school, or workplace. So, participation in conference is voluntary. Yan. So, participation in restorative justice is voluntary. At the same time, participation in conference is also voluntary. After it is determined that a conference is appropriate and offenders and victims have agreed to attend, the conference facilitator invites other affected by the incident, such as the family and friends of the victims and offenders. Yan, iimbitahin din. And in some cases, if a victim is unwilling to participate in a face-to-face meeting, he may make a written statement to be used in the conference, or a surrogate victim uh, may take his place. Yan. However, ito lang ang problema. Pagka written kasi, hindi siya hindi siya sapat. Maliban na lang kung yung written is direct to the point. Pagka sabi niya is, I am not able to physically attend this activity, but however, I am willing to pay the damages in the amount of so and so, which I will be transferring through his ATM account. Pagka kinumpleto na niya yung detalye, okay siguro. Kasi problema, paano kung may tanong sila sa letter niya, incomplete yung mga laman ng letter niya, hindi niya masasagot ka agad, di ba? Kaya ineffective din ang letter. Pati rin yung surrogate, when you say surrogate is substitution siya. Pagka victim surrogate, pagka surrogate victim, someone would act as the victim. Hindi rin siya effective kasi yung iba yung talagang nararamdaman ng victim sa mararamdaman nung magpapanggap o mag-a-act as victim. Yun lang din ang problema dito. So, let's move on. The conference facilitator sticks to a simple script and keeps the conference on focus, but is not an active participant. In the conference, the facilitator asks the offender to tell what they did and what they were thinking about when they did it. The facilitator then asks victims and their family members and friends to tell about the incidents from their respective and how it affected them. The offender's family and friends are asked to do the same. Di ba? Ang isang tinatanong daw sa perpetrator is uh, kung ano ang iniisip mo bago mong ginawa yung krimen. Eh, kung ang iniisip niya is, mahal na mahal ko kasi si Petra, matagal ko ng crush yan. Eh. Kaya, ginawa ko na. Sabi niya, pagka ganun ang sabi, the restorative justice is, yan, ang pwedeng i-offer is, kasal. O sige, sulungas pa kasalan mo, hindi ka nakakasuhan. Di ba? Kaya tinatanong yung dahilan kung bakit niya ginawa yun. Means na yun. The aims of restorative justice, that's just an example ha. Marami pang pwedeng maging example dyan. So the aims of restorative justice is concerned with the healing victims' wounds, restoring offenders to law-abiding lives. So pag yung offender nakagawa ng krimen, dapat ma-restore natin para hindi na siya umulit at para ma-reintegrate natin back to the community as a law-abiding citizen. And repairing harm done to interpersonal relationships in the community. So there are instances wherein the relationship uh, may be destroyed. Kunwari, mag-best friend, tapos nag-away dahil sa isang lalaki o nasira na yung relationship nila. So, yan din. Kailangan din maayos yung interpersonal relationship in the community. It seeks to involve all stakeholders and provide opportunities for those most affected by the crime to be directly involved in the process of responding to harm caused. A central, a central premise of restorative justice is that victims, offenders, and the affected communities are all key stakeholders in the restorative process. So victims include not only those directly affected by the offense, but also their family members and members of the affected community. The safety, support, and needs of those victims are the starting points for any restorative justice processes. So, yun talaga yung explanation niya. Restorative justice starts with the victim. Now, kung ano yung naramdaman ng victim, ano yung gusto niyang paraan na ma-repair yung kanyang damage, doon mag-start. Kung may provide yun ng perpetrator, well and good. Pero kung ayaw ng perpetrator, di last resort, filing of information or complaint. Uh, the safety, support, and needs of these victims are the starting points for any restorative justice process. Thus, a primary objective is to attend to victims' needs, such as material needs. When we say material needs, nahahawakan, damit, shelter, foods, financial, pera, emotional. So, dapat parati mong samahan para okay yung emotion niya. Ganyan. Dapat hindi mo siya binibigyan ng problema. Dapat parati siyang masaya. And social. Addressing these needs and the needs of the community is necessary if public demands for severe punishment are to be well. Yan. So, severe punishment are supposed to be well. So, mapatigil. This requires the assumption that crimes or violations are committed against real individuals rather than against the state. Restorative justice, therefore, advocates the restitution to the victim by the offender rather than retribution by the state against the offender. Instead of continuing and escalating the cycle of violence, it tries to restore relationship and stop the violence. Yan. So there's the difference between restorative justice and retributive justice. Okay? So restorative justice, its main objective is to restore, while retributive justice, its main purpose is to penalize the perpetrator. I guess meron akong presentation about that matter. Check ko lang. Ay, wala. Yan. Okay. Mhm. Restorative justice is concerned with healing victims' wound, restoring offenders to law-abiding. Tapos na yan. To stop the violence. Okay. So, our restorative justice process also aims to empower victims to participate effectively in dialogue or mediation with offenders. So, dapat active na makipag-participate din ang biktima para ma-repair yung damage sa kanya. Otherwise, hindi natin alam kung paano natin siya i-repair, di ba? Victims take an active role in directing the exchange that takes place, as well as the defining the responsibilities and obligations of offenders. Offenders are likewise encouraged to participate in this exchange to understand the harm they have caused to the victims and to take active responsibility for it. This means making efforts on their parts to set things right, to make amends for their violation by committing to certain obligations that may come in the form of reparations, restitution, or community work. So, when we say restitution, yung magbabayad siya. Community service naman pagka community work. Yan. While fulfilling these obligations may be experienced as painful, the goal is not revenge. So, kahit na napakasakit, at least, yung goal niya is hindi revenge. Mas masakit naman yung revenge. So, retributive justice is on revenge, di ba? While restorative justice is on reparation. But restoration of healthy relationships between individuals and within communities that have been most affected by crime. So restorative justice is a forward-looking preventive response that strives to understand crime in its social context. It challenges us to examine the root causes of violence and crime in order that these cycles might be broken. This approach is based on the assumption that crime has its origins in social conditions and recognizes that offenders themselves have often suffered harm. Therefore, communities must both take some responsibility for remedying those conditions that contribute to crime and also work to promote healing. So healing is crucial, not just for victims but also for offenders. Both the rehabilitation of offenders and their integration into the community are vital aspects of restorative justice. Offenders are treated respectfully and their needs are addressed. Yan. So, yung offenders are treated, so tinatratong maayos. And their needs are also addressed. So, removing them from the community or imposing any other severe restriction is a last resort. Yan. So, imprisonment is a last resort now. It is thought that the best way to prevent reoffending is reintegration. So, dapat ma-reintegrate natin siya sa community. The justice process in this way strengthens the community and promotes changes that will prevent similar harms from happening in the future. So it is generally thought that restorative justice should be integrated with legal justice as a complementary process that improves the quality, effectiveness, and efficiency of justice as a whole. So because they focus on the needs of the victim, the offender, and the community, restorative processes can help to determine how the law should be applied most fairly. So that is our discussion on restorative justice. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions with regards our topics, the Katarungang Pambarangay Law and the restorative justice, and and uh, among those first subjects we had, the pillars of the CJS, kindly post it in our group chat so I could answer it before our examination. So that's all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much and good luck to your final exams.